Hey,
Oh,
everybody. I know, right? I'm always
I
jamming
was
to our
grooving to
music.
my own beat.
Welcome to this really special edition of the Sci-Fi Sisters podcast, coming to you live from the Women at Warp IDIC Podcast Festival. It is so good to be here with y'all today. On board today on the mothership to bring you the show, we've got Sabrina Wood
Whoop whoop.
and J.D. Keeling.
Howdy, y'all.
Howdy, and I'm Tamia Harper, and thank you, Women at Warp, for organizing this fantastic festival. This has been so cool. It's been so much fun, and we're excited to kick off day 2 of this festival. We're going to be talking about strangers in strange lands, cultural identity in Star Trek, and it's a question. I know, right? It's a question that we thought of. It's a topic that we thought of because just talking amongst ourselves, our experiences as Black women navigating different cultural mores in this country. We get pretty adept at it, but it can cause some confusion and some laughter and some growth and lots of different things. And we thought about looking at ourselves through the lenses of our Star Trek characters that also were bicultural, that had to grow up or live in 2 different worlds or sometimes multiple different worlds at one time. So we thought it would be fun to have this discussion with you guys. And before we get started, I just want to say Trek Geeks is in the house. The Trek
Hey,
Geeks
hey.
Network, we are a proud podcast of the Trek Geeks Network. So it's really fun to come play with the Roddenberry Network folks. Very cool to be here. And we see all sorts of mothership people in the chat. We see David Powell is here and Justin Perry and Jill is
Jill.
here. It's good morning to you all. Good morning, mothership folks. Thank you for coming out and supporting us today. Hi, Susan. I met you last night. It's really cool to see you this morning.
Chat pack is strong. The pod is
Yes,
strong.
yes. So we're excited to get into this discussion. I think it's going to be a fun discussion because I can tell you right now that I don't have all the answers. Making me, I wrote questions and then I couldn't answer my own questions very well. So we'll see what comes down the pike. The first thing, when I think about, there's a lot of characters in Star Trek who navigate different cultures. Who do you think did it the best?
Huh. Okay. I I think I'm going to say something that's going to make everybody's head just explode, but I think Neelix was one of the best at navigating a lot of cultures. I mean, this guy was adept at ingratiating himself, and we're going to talk about him a little bit more. But I think he was somebody that was going around in this Delta Quadrant, and he was meeting all kinds of people. He tried to deal with the Kazon. He's dealing with Starfleet. He dealt with other people, and he did it by being his own crazy self. He was just an outgoing guy, exuberant. And I know a lot of people hate that about him, but Neelix is always one of my favorite people. And I thought he did a great job navigating between different cultures and being the only one for a long time on that ship. He was the only one. So give it to Neelix.
Would you call him the fly in the buttermilk?
Oh, daggone, yeah.
JD has this totally skeptical look on her face. Bring it out, JD.
No, I'm trying to figure out that flying buttermilk comment.
It's old school.
I know, is that one too old for you?
That's old school thing. Go
That
ahead.
might be like
Go on,
way before
child.
your time.
Just go on.
Let's keep it within the last 30 years.
Okay, I'll try, but kind of impossible.
I, I had an answer in my. Oh, you know what? I do have an answer because it was his job. So Garrick was making himself seem like you don't want to kill him. That was the whole statement. Like he was a literal spy. He was a gardener in Romulus, which I mean the Romulans already hate everyone they meet. So clearly he had to do something right. You have the whole situation with him stuck on DS9. Like, clearly, the man knows how to get in right below your radar, seem pleasant.
Seem unctuous. But
Yeah.
I mean, more so than Neelix, I mean, Garrick was just really like, oh my God. But he was a survivor,
Yeah.
and that's what you're doing when you're trying to survive in another culture, when you're the only one. You're just trying to survive. You're just trying to make it through the day with these people.
I have to. I like both of those choices. I think those are both pretty cool answers that I wouldn't necessarily have thought about. I mean, this is
See?
one of those ones. I know that's why I love doing these things with you guys. This is one of those ones that I had a little bit of trouble answering because, but I think ultimately, um, at the end of the day, I think Michael Burnham did one of the best jobs, not the best, you know. I mean, I know I phrased that question in a really broad, general way, but I think she did a great job. Um, Eventually, you know, she had to go through her ups and downs, being, you know, coming from Vulcan, uh, going from Earth to Vulcan, back to Earth's more Earth-centered society again. Um, Even though they say that the Federation really isn't Earth-centered, but it totally is. So
Hmm.
you know,
Yes, it
um,
is.
so I think she did a really good job of finding her footing eventually. You know, she went through her growing pains with it, but by the end of um, season 3, you know, she's definitely found her place.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think
you know.
I think it's I like what you're saying to me. What I'm thinking of when you say that Michael is the one for you is that even in this other culture, she excelled. She got all the way to the Vulcan Science Academy. She wasn't just like, oh yeah, here I am stuck on Vulcan, this little orphan. You know what? I'm gonna do really well in school. I'm gonna get all the way to the Vulcan Science Academy. And the only reason why I didn't get in there is because you said I couldn't get in there.
Right.
So
Yes.
and then
Yeah.
comes back to Earth and she's like, I'm a Starfleet captain. So so I guess you're right, Michael. We love
Yeah. She
Michael.
wasn't cowed by her experiences necessarily. I mean, she did go through her changes, you know, but it didn't
Whew.
stop her. You know, she was
Correct.
still
She pushed through
successful.
anyway.
So, which one is there a character that you identify with more than another? Is there a bicultural character or multicultural character that you have a strong affinity for or that spoke to you more than others?
Well, I it's one that we didn't really bring up. Well, I have to. Obviously, I love Worf, but I loved his whole arc, his whole story of, coming from being an orphan, being the first. And I identify with him in that regard of being the first because I was a first or an only. A lot of times in my life, I was taken out of neighborhood schools at 10 and went to pretty much all white school at 10 years old and
Mm-hmm.
had to travel. And I'm from Boston, Massachusetts, which is, and I'm talking Boston in the 60s. So this was not a happy thing to have to travel through some very segregated neighborhoods and get to this school and be with these kids, and it was just really tough sometimes. So I get that about War, but I don't think I am that. I'm more Neelix in that. I'm like the party girl. Hey, Mr. Vulcan. So I didn't have that gruff exterior that you see a lot of the people who are the onlys seem to kind of put around themselves. I don't know whether that's their like Odo was so gruff, and so was Worf, and but then we have Garrick and Neelix who go the other way. But so I didn't really have that thing. But Worf is the guy that I like. Yeah, I like Worf's my boy.
What about you, JD?
Uh, gonna have to go with Julian Bashir. Woo! Yes, I
Yo,
can.
all right.
That's your boy.
Yeah, no, I love Julian. He is by far the most relatable of people, just in general. Because I know when me, military brat, I have moved around a lot, mostly on the West Coast. But there's always that thing, especially in school, because me also ADHD, so I don't focus well. But like in school, it presented like very much in a way that Julian reminds me of, where it's all like, yes, you are smart. You are smart because well, for me, I could really hyper focus on everything. But you have to like try and fit in and make yourself seem like, oh yeah, I'm totally normal. I don't read like the entire works of Shakespeare for fun. How do you? But on the flip side, the older I got, the more it's all like, no, I'm a genius. What are you people talking about?
That's right.
Me.
That's right. And you embraced that, and we love it. And
to
now,
embrace the culture of genius. I love
yeah,
this. We got
and that's to the
different
Syfy
cultures.
sisters. That's to the Syfy sisters' benefit. Thank God you did. Because we benefit from your genius all the time. I
We
I
do,
was thinking
no
about this
lie.
question, and I was thinking about like I couldn't answer it like one person. I've identified with so many of them sometimes, but Worf really epitomizes a lot of my journey, especially when he was a child, uh, losing his parents. I didn't lose my parents. I'm just saying like being thrown into another culture as a child, which is kind of how I was raised around different cultures. I was going to school in predominantly white schools, coming home to well to a Black environment, but my family lived in a part of DC that it was just weird. I mean, I was around a lot of different people, but at the same time, like, I mean, it was Black when I was home and it was white when I was at school. Hi, Eve England. Welcome. Oh
Hey.
my gosh, it's so great to see you. Woohoo! And so I see Worf really like when he was a kid going to, Earth, from a Klingon society and then trying to come back to Klingon. So when I was in college was really the first time I started learning Black history and African American history. And I had gone to school in all these really predominantly white schools who did not teach. I mean, well, no schools taught our history. It wasn't even that if they were predominantly white. I mean, I was coming up as a kid in the 70s and 80s. Nobody taught Black history or African American history at all. You knew Frederick Douglass, you knew Martin Luther King, you knew Malcolm X, but he was pretty much the bad guy, and and you knew we were slaves, and that was it, And then I went to college, and I started taking classes and learning about my culture and learning about my history, and the next thing you know, I wanted to be blackety black, right? Blacker than black, blackety black. And so
You're
I
gonna
really,
out Klingon the Klingons. You like
yeah, I
Worf
was
did.
gonna
You're gonna out Klingon the
exactly. I
Klingons.
really related to Worf, trying to out Klingon the Klingons sometimes, So and then I grew, right, and continued to grow, and now I feel more comfortable with sort of Worf in the Jadzia era,
Yep.
or he's more centered and comfortable with himself and doesn't feel like he has to prove anything to anybody. He just simply exists, And I like take Gil Scott Heron for my mantra: just shut up and be Black. I don't have to tell everybody I'm blackity black, 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 black. You know, just shut up and be Black. And that's kind of how Worf was living by the time he got with Jadzia. He was very much his own. He's like, I'm going to do my own thing over here on the Defiant. I'm cool with you guys, but this is what I need. And I know that about myself,
And just leave me alone.
Right.
don't make me conform. That's the thing about being in these cultures. It's like sometimes the problem is, you have a need for something and you're not allowed to just be it. So I love that in Deep Space Nine, where they just said, Worf doesn't want to live on the station, and Captain Sisko was like, let him live on the Defiant then. If that's what the dude needs, okay, fine. So there's a big thing about accommodating in a bicultural sort of thing that I think maybe people don't get sometimes. They say, oh, they don't want to let you be different. When we were talking about the difference between sublimating something or subjugating people and actually having people, be part of the group. You're just going to crush someone down and say, no, I want you to be exactly like everybody else. And I don't really care what your culture is saying to you that you need. And so that's a thing I really liked about that show, when they just let him live on the Defiant, which was not something that people did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Speaking of childhood issues, Jill has a great comment about Spock being tormented by other kids for being half human. And, Spock was somebody's name who, when you think bicultural, I mean, he's the original bicultural for Star Trek. And he was completely tormented. And Michael, I don't know, did we explore whether Michael went through the same? Um,
They showed that she
I
went
think
through
it,
some, but they tried to kill the girl. She went through the same. They were beyond microaggression. They were like aggression.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hey, we got another sci-fi sister in the house. What's up, Yvette? Yvette Blackman Tom is in the house.
Hey, that. So I think it's kind of interesting too when you talk about Spock. And one thing I was thinking about, because we were having a discussion earlier when we were talking about doing the show, and we became very aware in our conversations about this, that we are from three different generations, which is again one of the strengths I think we have as the Sci-Fi Sisters. And I think even when you're watching the show and you're watching how they treat the one, the only, the stranger in the strange land, it's different. You know, when you watch Spock and McCoy's interaction now back in the 60s and the constant microaggressions that McCoy gave to Spock, that was just like, hey, this is okay. This wouldn't, and it's cringy now.
Yeah,
Now we're watching it, it's just like, oh my God, McCoy really was horrible. But at the time, and we were talking about this in our discussion leading up to the show, we were talking about how different things have changed in being the one and only in the outlier. And I think if you just look at even the shows and how they treated Spock and how they treated Worf, and then how they portray Michael or even Saru as being the others, there's this real uptick in understanding the life of the other, as poor Mr. Spock and his character and his depiction, the writer's room didn't give him. So I think that's kind of interesting too to watch how they treat it in the
I think
shows.
I think that's a really valid point. I mean, because just as you were talking about it, I was thinking, yeah, Yvette, that McCoy was aggressive. Um, he just the stuff that McCoy got away with, calling like as soon as he got angry, here comes that slur, right? Here
Oh,
comes that racial slur. And, we know that, baby. We've lived with that. Like, I know people that are just inches away from calling me the N word, when they get angry. And it's like, you're just looking at them like, I know it. I can see it. It's like, it's on the tip of your tongue. It's the same thing. As soon as you get mad with me, here comes that pejorative. Here comes that slur that you think is going to
some
harm me.
stereotypic thing.
You're going to use that to harm
Yeah,
me. Yeah.
yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
Spock was just like, wow, okay, really? So,
I know Spock just like,
and I know they were trying to make a point about his, his biracial or by alien thing, but they really hammered it to death.
well,
It's just,
I think it was in the parlance of the time, right? That
yeah,
was the
exactly.
way that was, I mean, that was on purpose, because we knew Gene Roddenberry knew that there were people in the audience who could relate to McCoy,
Yeah.
by seeing their own actions played out in McCoy, it was like, oh, wow, am I doing that? Do I do that? Have we done that? Do I know people who do that? Is it okay with me when people do that? You know?
Well, and another thing about that, and I only get this. I only get this lately because I grew up with all men in my family, uncles, brothers, a lot of men in my family. And men have a different way of relating to each other as opposed to women. And they
Mm.
will rank each other out. I mean, they will not give each other like, "Hey, guy, it's so good to see you." They're like, "Oh, you're an ugly bum, and I can't believe I'm seeing your face again." And they're like, "Is this good? Are they happy? Oh my God!" So when women hear some of the differences, there's also this difference between how men speak to each other and how women speak to each other. And for a man to say something like that to a woman, we would be like, "Oh, huh, earrings off, it's on and popping." But
Yeah,
but guys say this, and you have to realize they just talk like that sometimes. It's not even like they're trying to insult you; they're just being male.
yeah. Like
Hmm.
I was when you were talking about McCoy and Spock, I'm just sitting here like, are we sure? Because I have an Italian friend, Italian American, my friend Chris, love the man. But like the moment, like especially in today's America, I constantly tell him like you are one bad Republican uprising for being on my team, buddy. like, like, and that's just how we talk to each other.
That's funny. Yeah, I mean, no, I get that. That's a very true and valid point.
Yeah, so sometimes it's racial, sometimes it's cultural, sometimes it's male, female. You don't even know what's going on. But McCoy was definitely microaggressing.
Mm-hmm. and I think you just sort of that's what you just brought up. Sometimes it's racial, sometimes it's cultural, sometimes it's that's a really good point, because it's hard sometimes to have a discussion about cultural issues without having a discussion about race.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, like here, we're trying to really delineate, but it's really difficult sometimes because they can be so interwoven, although they are not the same thing,
right,
all the time,
well,
necessarily.
Yeah. Like JD brings up that point about her difference of being an only is being enhanced and being a genius. It's not racial, but it's a cultural thing that you're in this group that is naturally just your brilliant self, JD.
No, I mean, I don't know if I qualify as an actual genius. I just like to say I am.
Did she not say she was a genius? I heard it.
I talk myself up like no other. Like, I'm my
just
own
claim it,
biggest
girl.
fan.
Just claim it. Just say it. Yeah, I'm a genius. God dog it.
No, but like, I know for me, yeah, my experience is which is another reason I related to Julian, is because like he was an augment. And he is living in this world where he has to very much pretend like, oh no, I'm one of the normals. I'm like, y'all, I have nothing augmented about me. But once he meets other augments, yeah, they're other augments, but they're not quite like him. And like that was always a thing for me as a military brat, like, because we lived on a lot of bases. So I've met other military brats, but I've never met anyone else who was from Kodiak, moved to Kansas, moved to California, moved to Juneau, Alaska, then moved to Virginia. Like,
Wow.
that's me.
Mm-hmm.
That's different. You're special.
Yeah.
That
We're
is
all
pretty
unique
cool.
flowers.
So, do you have a really early memory of being a stranger in a strange land?
Oh yeah.
What's that?
Yeah. Like I said, I'm from Boston, Massachusetts, so it came up real early in my upbringing. And so, like I said, I was a kid in school in Boston, and I remember the day I realized that I was Black, and it was going to be a problem for people. And that was like, you know, I came from a house where, my dad owned the building, he was in the home, I had brothers, he was in the Boy Scouts, it was like life was like everybody else's life, and I go to school and I was gonna have a big birthday party, huge party. I mean, I had a dress, everybody was coming, and I was turning 6. Man, whoa. So, I remember this because there's a picture, it's on Facebook. If you look at the picture, there it is. Everybody from the street was coming, and I invited this girl in school, and she was white. And I'd been friends with her in school. We were in kindergarten together, and we were now in the first grade. Woo! And Barbara, I was like, Barbara, you gonna come to the party? And she was like all excited. And then she came back and told me she couldn't come to the party. I was like, what do you mean you can't come to the party? Everybody in the streets coming. Like all of us were in the same. That was back in the day when in the neighborhood you were in the same school. So most of the kids in this neighborhood were the kids in the school. And I'm like, well, why can't you come to the party? And she was like, not telling me, and she didn't know. And you were like, oh, we're crying. And my older brother said, it's because you're colored. What? What am I? I'm colored. Oh my God. And it was like one of those moments. I swear to God, it was a Soji moment. I was like awakened. All of a sudden, I realized I'm a synth. People don't like me. This is bad. I mean, what do you mean I'm colored? And it was like everything that I had heard buzzing around in my little 6-year-old brain on the news and in the paper, and they were talking about people and fights. And I was like, I'm one of those people. Oh, dang, this might not be so. This is going to be a problem for people. It's not a problem for me. But I remember distinctly realizing that day that I was Soji.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, it's powerful. You think about those moments. I mean, they shape us so early on. JD, what about you? Anything?
Uh, yeah, similar but different.
Hmm.
Because as I said, I've lived a lot on the West Coast and then Topeka, Kansas. So I'm like 5, 6 ish. I'm very much my own individual. I'm really big into Elvis and country music. Okay, so any and every time I would visit family, they'd be all like, why is she listening to that white people music? And it's all like, but this is just music. It sounds happy. I don't care
Hmm.
who they are. This is my music. And like all growing up, especially once I got into rock, like my family would always be all like, why aren't you listening to black people music? I'm all like, it doesn't amuse me the same way. What do you want me to say, y'all?
I get that. I remember when I remember one time
The-
when I was in my teens, and this is the dawn of MTV era, and there was new wave and rock. MTV brought everything together into one, and everybody started listening to all this other music that was. It used to be this is white music, this is black music, and that's it. There's and only times those streams crossed was like Michael McDonald and Hall and Oates. It's just like it. And I started listening to like, all sorts of music. I started hearing punk music. I started hearing, new wave. I started hearing groups like the Cars and Tom Petty. And I loved it. I loved everything that I was hearing. And I remember one of my family members being like, that's okay. When you get older, you'll come back and you'll listen to black music again. And
Just
I'm
the
like,
back to the
come
fold.
back. I haven't left. I just happen to like these other things.
Yeah,
I, I just
like
wanted to
how
I just want to show JD. I don't know if you go up my wall over here. I have an Elvis poster from Blue Hawaii up here. I just want you to know that there is another black person that loves Elvis.
but yeah, like I know we tease Sabrina about some of her life choices, but I very much
They're
grew up
about
with
to
that whole
snatch my
thing where
black
it's all like,
card all the
you're
time.
not
Y'all kind
black
of.
enough right now.
I am not black enough for the sisters. Sometimes it's like they are about to snatch my card. I'm like, what? What I say? What I say? Oh my god! Letting
I
it
want
all out. It's on Facebook too.
I want to shout out
I get the
Anne
sound of
Marie.
music behind me. My God, okay, wait a minute.
Anne Marie's in the house, and Linda, and am I saying it like Andereg? Thank you for watching. That's so awesome that you're here. Thanks. Hey,
Hey,
Mohammed.
Muhammad.
What's up,
Howdy.
buddy?
Oh my God, I
War
love his
Dog High,
show.
my brother from another mother. Chat Pack is in the
Woo
house.
woo! I
Man
know
in the
this
house.
is great.
Come on. I love it. I
You
love it.
know, speaking of the chat pack, we had one of these types of discussion on one of our after parties, DMV too, I think, and we had a deep discussion, and that's how we made friends with a lot of these people in the chat pack. It was David Powell that night, and it was War Dog Heim. It was we were just having like a deep down, what in the world is going on? Why is it like this? And I will never forget that conversation that night that I had with you guys, all online, all on Zoom. And I really appreciate you guys all showing up here today. Love you
Yeah.
guys, brother from another mother.
Right. And this is why Trek is so special.
Yeah.
It's like we have the show where we talk about watching it from a Black woman's perspective. But it's really and pointing out sometimes often where Trek falls short, but it's so much out of a place of love and it really pointing out where Trek is so strong. And one of the reasons why we love Trek so much is because of the community, because Trek presents us with the possibility of the ideal and gives us a vehicle to try to create this world of Iddick that we want to see. I don't have to idealize it. I can be about it, and this is part of the reason why Syfy Sistas was born, so that we could help foster that and have the space, and then we end up meeting people who blow our minds and open our perspectives and our hearts, and for real, listening to Women at Warp early on was like that for me because Women at Work challenged me. I used to get pissed all the time because I'd be like, damn it, I can't watch this the same way anymore, because they would challenge me to broaden my thinking and deepen my thinking about what I was, which is why I really came to respect and love the show and follow them so much, so it makes me really happy to be here today, to be a part of that, to continue that and then create family, and that's what I feel like has happened, especially during the pandemic. Is one of the bright spots of the pandemic has been getting to know people and creating family. And now we have on the mothership, on our Facebook community, is this wonderful, fully diverse world of people who are here for conversation and for getting to know each other and to love each other and to build each other up and to help each other. I love you too, Jill.
Thanks, Jill. Okay, somebody make sure you send her the check. Send her the check. We want us to send the check, Jill.
And JR Poole is in the house. We miss you too, brother
JR.
Poole.
Oh my God, I'm so glad to hear from you. We missed you.
Okay, we're gonna bring this back to
calm
our
down.
conversation.
We got a show to do.
So this is a hard question for me to answer, but I think it's a question worth thinking about. Was there a time when the cultural norms that you were raised with, which were challenged by interacting with another culture, like for the better or for the worse, and that really affected your way of thinking about life or seeing the world?
Well, I have a better story. Luckily I haven't had my back broken or had to give blood to someone that I despise, like war, which are two examples of your culture butting up against something. So I've never had any of that. But one of the things that I was early in my career in corporate, and I worked in corporate for 30 years. And I worked for the telephone company at the time. Okay, are you ready for this, JD? When there was only one of them.
So, one phone company.
Was one phone company,
and it was and your phone was on the wall or it was on a table and it had a spring cord.
And you paid one bill to us.
I'm not 5.
But at that time, it was a very, very corporate, very, very strict corporate culture that we had at the phone company. And so here I come. They realized that they had hired all these guys out of the Korean War, and then most of their guys were going to age out. And then they went and did the same daggone thing, and they swooped all these liberal art majors into the phone company, and I was one of them caught in that net. So here I am working at the phone company, and the man I was working for, my first corporate boss, his name was Bob Gannon. His son had gone to school with me. So this man was not just some white man that I was working for. This was a white man who was the father of someone that I was contemporary with. And the cultural thing for me is that Black people never want to call somebody that's considered like an elder or something like that. You don't call them by their first name. We just don't do that. You put auntie on it or uncle or mister or something, or there's some kind of way you're going to say this man's name. And so I was in there with all these other guys, and there were a lot of men at the phone company at that time. We were the first women in there. It was just a mess. Black, woman, young, you name it. I was like a triple thing in there. And so everyone was calling him Bob, and I couldn't call him Bob. I mean, there were other men his age in there that I was calling by their first name, but because of who he was in relation to a friend of mine from school, he was Mr. Gannon, and I couldn't call him anything else. So I eventually started calling him Chief. And no one could figure out why I was calling him Chief. And I told him, I said, Mr. Gannon, I really have a problem calling you by your first name. And because of Steve. I mean, we're contemporaries. I didn't even really know Steve that well in school. And he gave me the accommodation. He goes, you're making me uncomfortable. You keep calling me Mr. Gannon. Everybody's thinking I'm beating up on you or something. And I'm like, yeah, but I just can't do it. So he let me call him Chief. Everybody was trying to figure out what was going on. And then they started calling him Chief too. And it was hilarious. And I was like, Chief, Chief, Chief. So eventually we had different nicknames because I asked him so many questions that he started calling me Sherman, and I started calling him Mr. Peabody because he also remembered that cartoon. So he started calling me Sherman, and then it just went downhill from there. But luckily I left. But that whole thing of having like an auntie or deferring to an older person or an elder, which I think is very cultural. And I just could not get to this first name thing with people, my friends' mothers and father. And it was just like, it was just a whole big thing at work when it happened. I just couldn't even deal. It was good. Everybody called him Chief.
That story. I like that story a lot.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. That was culture.
Well, because it doesn't always have to be bad. Like sometimes I think, especially like in the current climate, we there's a lot of focus on cultural confrontation, but I've experienced a lot of that. I can't be Black in this country and not have experienced that. That's just, it's there. But I think that I'm a person who really likes to live in the solution, and I like to be the solution as much as possible. So that I think that influences a lot of my interactions like that.
Yeah. I'm just laughing because Jill is calling me Sherm. I'm doomed.
It is done. And Louise, I want to say thanks. I didn't give you a shout out before either. Hey, chat pack in the house. JD, did you have an instance that you can think of? There's something that shaped your thinking, that was presented new and different to you?
I mean, it doesn't go deep, but living in Virginia. Like, y'all, okay. Use people.
Whoa.
Yeah. I'm sorry, but like living in Virginia as someone from the West Coast and someone from Alaska, nothing you people do is right. It's all wrong. You leave deer on the side of the road in Northern Virginia. You can't handle snow. Like, just the threat of snow has people outside plowing. They cancel school for like any hint of cold rain. It's a struggle to exist here, okay? Like, I'm sorry.
It's okay, JD. I'm from Massachusetts and I'm feeling that so much. I'm not even from the West Coast. All you got to do is go mid-Atlantic, and you're like, what is with these people? So that's okay. Now we're going cultural.
I mean, no, like, okay, so in Alaska, which also gets into like other topics, but like we just have very much our own way of doing things. We're used to the snow, blizzards. What's a blizzard? It doesn't matter. When we are used to wildlife, it's there. There's a lot of land, and we know we don't take up much of it. And yeah, you come here and people are all like, oh my God, I saw a raccoon. And so like, and like, I remember once it was a guy I met at work, and he was all like, oh, you're from Alaska. So what do you do if you see a bear? And I'm all like, you don't mess with it. And he's all like, yeah. But what if it's in your way? And I'm all like, you don't mess with it. And he's all like, but what if it comes at you? So like, you don't mess with, I can't make this any clearer, dude. Like, we live in harmony. The bear does not bother me. I don't bother the bear. It's that simple. But like to explain, just like being from Alaska has brought out like so many questions, and
I did it to you. I was like, girl,
like deeply ingrained concerns, especially in the lower 48. Because I remember in high school there was a girl. I was telling her like, oh yeah, I lived in Juneau when Sarah Palin was governor. Like, I used to walk by the governor's house on the way to McDonald's, and this girl looks at me. She's all like, you have a McDonald's in Alaska?
Oh,
and I'm so like,
hey.
What? Like, that threw me so
JD, you were getting a lot of Alaska love in the comments.
I know. 49er.
And a lot of people who can identify with being in the snow and living in the snow.
It's cultural. It's climate culture. Yes, I got somebody saying that climate culture is a thing.
Yeah, it is. Linda says climate culture is a thing, and it's so true. And
one and only is not about race. It is culture. Culture is a lot of different things.
Yeah.
And I want to do a quick shout out to Dave Gregory. Welcome from the mothership. He's also in the house. Thank you. And War Dogheim, Sabrina, said that he could totally agree with you about the calling people by their respecting your elders because he's a hillbilly from the Intermountain West.
Okay, so that's like a southern thing or something like that. War dog, you know how yeah. I mean, well, black people, we are matriarchal. I think we really are. We are with our mothers, and aunties are special. And when we call you an auntie, we love you. We're throwing some
Yeah.
serious love up to you. And even the people descending from that auntie, they're now cousin. I have cousins that have no blood relation to me. It is just that our mothers were such good friends that they were aunties, and now I got cousins. And they still say they're my cousins. I'm like, we are not cousins.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's the majority of my family friends are my cousins.
You're cousins.
They're all cousins because it was aunt so and so and uncle so and so, and that's it.
Always.
That's just the way it is. I just want my I don't have a single instance that I can remember that where interaction with another culture like significantly changed my perspective. I remember when I was 14, I went on a 2-week trip to Europe. That really changed my whole world perspective. And I stayed with a family in Switzerland for a while. And, that was amazing because breakfast was like one egg and a little piece of toast. And I was like, where's the food, y'all? Like I come from grits and bacon and eggs and
where's the meat? That would have been the first thing. There's no meat in this breakfast. What's wrong with you?
But I mean, no, but it was really wonderful. But I do find that a lot of my cultural understanding comes through food. So, that's one of the things that I respected about Neelix so much, is that he tried to, I know, like, as you say, like, it's true. Like he was the ambassador, right? He tried to foster understanding through food. And I think, JD, you try to do that with your work with the captain's table, like in taking, the Star Trek recipes and doing that. You really cultivate an understanding and like translating what food means to us, why certain things are the way that they are in different recipes. I love it.
I have no idea what you're talking about. But
okay, never mind. Moving right along.
But yeah, no, food is
She's just making flan. She's not trying to say anything about it.
Food is one of like the most important things, and I also really like Neelix because honestly, I enjoy the way he tried to like bridge the gap, which terrible results. I mean, no one died from his food, presumably, but he tried. He'd come in and be like, oh, this is a chocolate cake? Well, I have this root vegetable from this place that's like chocolate, right?
It was like that. Neelix's coffee that time. It's
like he tried.
When I was thinking about that question, when I originally wrote that question, I was specifically thinking about Worf. The two incidents in Worf's life that really were like cultural conflict moments. There was one. What was the name of that show? That episode, The Enemy, in season 3 of TNG, when they had a dying Romulan on the ship, and they needed Worf's tissue to help save that Romulan's life, and Worf refused. He was still. I mean, Romulans killed his parents, so he's nursing a grudge. He's feeling some kind of way about this. And he was like more Klingon than Klingon at that moment. Like no self-respecting Klingon would give part of themselves to save a Romulan, and everybody in the Federation, on the ship was like, oh, you should do the right thing. And they tried to plead with him. They tried moral persuasion. They tried like logical persuasion. Nothing was swaying Worf, and in the end he died. Like Worf did not move from his position, and that character died. So the Federation culture was like, oh, do the right thing, let bygones be bygones, go ahead and save him. And Worf was like, there's no way. And then the other time I was thinking about was when Worf's back was broken, and what is that was season 5, Ethics. I'm looking at my notes. I don't know this stuff off the top of my head ever, y'all, ever. I'm never that person that knows a reference off the top of her head. I always have a note. But
Only like 800,000 shows, so you're forgiven.
thank you. But it was the time when Worf broke his back, and he was like, "Oh, the Klingon way, I'm useless." In his culture, he was useless, and there was some ritual suicide thing that he was going to do, and the Federation culture was like, "What? What? No, you're not useless, and we're not letting you kill yourself because your back is broken." And he was like, "I don't want to live if I'm not a quote unquote full man," you know. So those were the episodes I was thinking about.
Yeah, in both of those episodes too. I'm sorry, go ahead, JD.
Oh, no. You follow your point because I'm going to completely diverge this thing.
Okay.
Aha, got it.
Yeah.
That's her job.
Well, yeah. Okay, what I was going to say was that in both of those instances, though, they came around to his point of view. I mean, Picard said to Beverly, if this thing doesn't work, we're going to have the back operation. We're going to have to let him do what he wants to do because he cannot live like we would in our culture. He's not going to be able to do it. So Picard was going to back him up in that. And I thought that was interesting because then when Kern comes in and he's saying the same thing, I want to do ritual suicide. I can't live like this. You know, I've been just whatever, you know, remember Kern came in there. Worf says to him, oh no, you can't do this. I'm like, wait a minute. When you were going to do the back, you were all set with the knife and you were done make Alexander kill you and all this mess. And what happened? And they just
That's what
wiped Kern's memory.
Muhammad Noor said, yeah, like, oh yeah, similar thing happened, you know?
Similar thing happened, and Worf was like, "Oh, I've been assimilated culturally by the Starfleet. Now I don't think that way." So it was really kind of interesting. And then the other one where he wasn't going to give up the blood or the DNA, you know, the other person, the Romulan, was just as angry and didn't want it. He called it filth. So you know, Worf was like, "Oh, we got to double down on why I'm not doing this." But Picard also would not order him to give his blood. He wasn't going to order him. So in both times, Picard was the one who acquiesced to the cultural need, which I thought was interesting in both instances because it was so against whatever was going on. You know, they needed, Tomalak was about to blow the ship off the, you know, face of the earth if he didn't get this Romulan back. There was going to be a war if Worf didn't do it. It wasn't just, oh, please do it and save the Romulan. It was like, no, please do it and save us from a war. And Worf was still like, I don't care what you all need. I'm not doing this.
Yeah, and it's been pointed out in the chat that Worf did in fact try to go ahead with the step with killing Kern for his wishes in that episode.
Finally,
he did acquiesce to the Klingon culture. He was like, "Yep," he's like, "And this is, I respect your wishes," and this is, yeah.
But he was going to fight him. He didn't go like, "That's the thing to do."
Like, Justin Gina says Picard low key loved Klingon culture.
What was he? He was Worf's I forget what he was. Chadich.
Yeah, Chadich.
You know, Picard knew the deal. He was like, "Oh no, I could Klingon as much as you can, Worf. I could Klingon some Klingon."
So JD, turning around on its head, what take us?
Oh,
take us to the other side.
No. So yeah, because listening to y'all talk about, you know, cultural conflicts in Star Trek, it really made me think of the DS9 episode Cardassians, where we meet Rugal, the adopted Cardassian boy.
Yes. Oh my God, that's such a good one.
Because I really love that. Because it's really the first time you see Cardassian culture, and honestly, my heart bleeds for Rugal, who, you know, yeah, he was orphaned because Dukat just hated his dad, but also like he was raised by Bajorans, and the happy resolution is all like, oh yeah, you get to go live with these people you were taught to hate. Have fun. So like, no,
what?
This is not a good ending.
They did Rugal, so I mean that was so, you know, that episode really is deep. I think everybody that does not, again, I don't remember the name of it. I'm sure someone in the chat will tell us, but that is a really deep episode that it talks about a lot of different things on a lot of levels there, and what is the right thing to do when you do this, when you raise a child and actually poison him against his own kind. You know, I think that's sort of the fear that a lot of people have about adoptions when somebody is from another race, that you're going to make this person like you, and you're not going to teach this person about their own race. And so I think they were amplifying what a lot of people's fears are with that kind of adoption, which is not necessarily true. I would rather have a child adopted and loved than left behind just because somebody of the same color couldn't accommodate. But
Yeah.
maybe that's just me.
Just real quick, hey, at Seventh Rule, Ryan
Hey.
in the house. What's up, brother?
Ooh, can we think of a bad? Somebody think of a pun fast, because
I know, right?
Gotta get a bad joke going.
The pun master is here.
Pun master.
Hi, Boris. Welcome. Yeah, I mean that was a really great episode, because the epitomizes this conflict of clash of two cultures, and
Yeah.
poor Rugal.
Yeah,
I mean,
especially given how Dukat, it really does show Dukat fully understood both Bajoran culture and his own, because he knows, like in Cardassia, family is everything, and there was nothing more shameful for his political enemy to have than like some child you left behind on this planet. Like, how dare you?
Yeah. It's always the kids that pay.
And not only that, like learning the history of his people from from their conquered perspective, from the oppressed perspective, which is a whole different thing. I mean, like we see in our culture in this country a lot of white families adopting children of other races. You don't see a lot of other families of other races adopting white children, and mostly that's because more white families are granted adoptions than
have the money to
adopt. And they have the money. More white families have the money to go through the adoption process than other families in the country. So it's not like for a lack of want. It's not like some people love more and we're going to give homes to these children. It's just a simple amount of economics and opportunity. But
that's my impression. I don't know if that's true.
If it makes me think about if a white kid is adopted into a Black family, in how they would be raised in this country, how they would look upon white culture in this country, and I loved that episode for doing that. It does not present any easy cut and dry answers. And then you can 20 something years later, you can think about it, continue to think about it,
Well, we got a few more minutes. You want to wrap us up with one last question, or?
Okay, I'm gonna go really lighthearted here. Code switching. Code switching.
Okay.
Because this is a cultural phenomenon. To code switch is to be able to speak in another language, basically for a particular audience, Do you do it very often? And also, like, do you think that if there was a Star Trek character who was going to code switch, or who does code switch, who would it be?
Wow.
Lorca. Anyways. His entire role was a code switch. Come on.
I think that's the best one. Yeah, Lorca. He was definitely code switching the whole time he was there.
Okay. Does Mirror Universe really count?
Yes.
Yeah, no, that was a different language.
Right.
Terra firma.
Kennedy says Worf code switches all the time. And I agree. That's who I was thinking of too.
Death to the opposition. I mean, the man just can't, he's just, I love, my favorite line is when he came in one scene in DS9 and he was talking, all dressed up, and he was talking to Kira. It was the one where Jadzia's former spouse came in, and he was talking to them and he was telling them something, and Kira just looked at him after he left and said, I never know when he's kidding or not, because Worf totally totally cling on to her, man. Just like, okay, I'm not even gonna code switch. I'm gonna tell you exactly what I dream about, and wham, wham, wham. And she was like, okay, we need Warp to go back to the code switch.
Yo, this has been a really fun discussion. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Women at Warp, for having us on this event. I think it's an amazing event, and I'm really happy to be a part of it. And I hope we get to do many more like this because what you're doing is really valuable. I've met and seen now and learned about a lot of other podcasts that I will be following, voices of people who I can't wait to listen to some more and interact with some more. And I really hope that you all enjoyed today. And Sabrina, if folks want to leave comments for us, want to get in touch with us, want to come play on the mothership, how do they do that?
You can reach us in a number of ways. You can go to our website, which is syfysisters.com. You can also find us on Instagram at Syfy, that's SYFY dot Sistas, SISTAS. And you can also find us on Twitter as Syfy Sisters. And you can always, always, always come and find us on trekgeeks.com/X/Syfy Sisters and talk to us. Let us know. Please, please, please. We love email. You love them, so send us an email and let us know what you think about the show.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everybody. And Jara, it was really cool being here with you guys too. And Chat Pack, our pod is eternal. Love you, Chat Pack. Love you all the time. And thanks, everybody. We're going to sign off. So peace, love, and hair grease.
Hey, hey.
Adios.